Greetings. It's raining out there, and if everybody else up in the mainland U.S. is cold today, so am I. It's cold here too. So Hawaii has not escaped this fall winter we're experiencing, although it's at a degree of Hawaiian style cold winter. Things are still green. There's no snow here, except up on the mountain. So, since it's not a good day to go walking around out in the garden, I thought I'd just take the opportunity to talk about going back to the garden. Deep within mythology and in our religions, we have this understanding that humans at one time came out of a garden. The story says they were ejected. They were bad humans, and maybe, I don't know. But for me, there seems to be at least a social validity to this, because I had learned the story as a young man, was taught by my teachers, and it left a lasting impact on me. It just seems such a wonderful idea that humans would have started in a garden where there were figs and pomegranates and bananas and carrots and all manner of different plants and things that people might need, that they didn't really need to worry much about anything, just hang out and name the animals, that type of thing. It sounded luxurious. It sounded wonderful compared to where I was living on the south side of Chicago in a not-so-good neighborhood. And my relatives were all working their living rear ends off, either working in steel mills or in grain exchanges or welding truck bodies or whatever they were all doing. It didn't seem to match up in my mind with what I'd been taught about human history from the mythological viewpoint. I said, well, if we are all out of a garden, and we understand all that, what are we doing out here, building Chevrolets for a living and pulling our energy down a wire from some energy monopoly and driving automobiles everywhere that are making the world choke, and spending huge amounts of money on the petroleum to run them, totally and completely addicted to the support network that we call our social structure, through corporations, through utilities, through government regulations and whatnot. It really seemed a far cry and stretch. And every time I enter a garden, a good garden, and I walk around, I find a high degree of peace and a satisfaction that's pretty hard to put the finger on as far as why I feel that way, but I definitely feel good when I'm out in the garden, and I think probably most people watching this channel have this same experience. This is shared. It's not unusual in humans. Otherwise, why would there be so many humans that grow plants and crops and so on? We have this deep attachment to the idea of surrounding ourselves with food and beauty through flowers and plants. I guess it goes back to the beginning of time. And so as far as our society is today and our relationship to it, I think we have just kept moving further and further and further from the garden that we may have originally come from, to the point that today we refer to ourselves as a technological society. We are still an agrarian society that is based on farming and plants, but it's not as visible as it once was, and it's a smaller and smaller number of humans every day that engage in that activity. So we are really moving away, and we're in a situation where, as if at one time the planet pretty much gave us everything that we actually needed for comfortable existence. Now today, most of us totally doubt the idea that the planet could support our lives without the intermediaries of General Electric, Ford Motor, the White House, Congress, and on and on. The supermarket, the drive-thru at McDonald's. I mean, where do most of us actually get our food? I think that, again, probably most of the people who are listening to this right now, you probably have at least something growing out there in your yards that you eat. Most of you do, I'm sure. Some of you, I know for a fact, some of you have a whole lot of stuff out there, more than you'll ever need even. So gardeners are a bit more independent from the social network as far as support to material goods, because gardeners will grow their foods. They will grow fruits. Some of us actually grow grains and other carbohydrates. Some of us grow fibers even. A whole lot of us grow culinary herbs and medicinal herbs. That is very common. And so, people who garden have food at their disposal, walking right out the door. They have health as they walk out and harvest plants that we use that make us feel better emotionally and physically. But as for the rest of the planet, either we just plain don't have the opportunity to engage in this because we're living in a concrete jungle, or our society is so incredibly disrupted because of belief systems that it's impossible to grow a plant without finding a landmine where you tried to stick it, and so there's a lot of reasons why most of us will actually probably never in our lives be able to return to the garden. But for those of us who are avid gardeners, what I'm advocating and suggesting is there is not only a tremendous amount of personal, spiritual, and psychological and physical satisfaction to returning to the garden, that is growing our own crops, but there's actually a social contribution here. We don't really usually think of it that way, but as we begin to grow, say, a lot of our own food, well, we no longer have to rely on huge farming corporations to produce that food. We can do it in our own yards. We don't have to rely on the water distribution networks that irrigate the crops, the companies that sell the chemicals and the poisons that support those crops. We don't have to rely on the refrigeration and the transportation networks that move the crops to market. We don't have to rely on middlemen, markups, and hope that when we go into the supermarket and pick up something that it's actually either edible by quality, because a lot of times it doesn't taste as good as what you could grow, or is it actually safe to eat? So much of the food today is dangerous. That's really pathetic that we're experiencing that. But it is the nature. As the food system grows larger and larger and larger, you no longer have a farmer who's looking at his lettuce crop and going, there seems to be something not quite right here, or would never use water that was contaminated with manure to wash the crops and so on. But it's just gotten too big, and the individual care, I guess, is the biggest problem, and people who really do worry about the quality of stuff. We have government agencies now, Food and Drug, to look at the stuff. We have inspectors and that, which usually aren't being paid enough to give a darn. The government's being shut down, so they're not inspecting anything. The chickens over here in Hawaii disappeared recently because of the government shutdown, because there was nobody in the mainland to say, yeah, the chickens can leave California. There's still a shortage of chicken here. The only chickens I can find are the ones walking around in my garden eating everything. So, the garden attracts good things sometimes along with bad. It's a real strange thing. And as you begin to produce a lot of your own food, and you begin to realize how delicious the food can be. I mean, I receive compliments constantly for years on the quality of the produce that I produce. When I give it or sell it to people, I generally have return customers, because it tastes so good. And I care about it. I care about it. I'm not going to let somebody have something that's second rate. Is it going to happen? I'll compost it first, or chop it up and eat it myself before I'll sell it or give it to someone else. So there's a pride involved in all of that. Not only do you end up with a higher quality, and you have an independence that you begin to understand, where you can see that the earth will provide. Right now, most of us still believe in science will provide, social safety nets provide, corporations provide, and whatnot. But the earth still provides, as it always did. And it isn't just with food. It obviously still provides food, especially if you take care of it and tend it. It will provide more than enough food for you. You'll have enough food for your neighbors and who knows how many other people when it's done well. But the other thing I think we begin to understand is that food isn't the only thing. That water, which is something that most of us, we pay for it. We buy these stupid little bottles, which of course they're floating all over in the ocean and making a terrible problem with the plastic. And so, again, here we got just a simple thing like water. All right, water is creating an actual nightmare because of the way it's being sold and distributed. The plastic bottles are not only somewhat toxic to us because of the acrylamide that's in the bottles, and I find it a completely ridiculous idea, paying somebody $1 for a bottle of water. That's nuts, at least from my point of view. Okay, but I'm speaking as a guy, had his own wells, and so on. And I live in an area where we get 150 inches of rain a year, so if I put a bucket out in the yard, I end up with high quality water overnight for free. It provides energy too. And the first thing we did after building the house was to put solar hot water on the top of the house, because there are government rebates involved in all of that. And so it was very lucrative to do at the time we put it up. It saved me 30% on my energy bill by doing this. And so the sun, which is what grows our crops and makes our great food, will also heat the water that we use in our house. And now I have gone ahead and we're putting photovoltaics up on the house, and we will supply more than 100% of the energy we actually need to run my computer, my video cameras, my stove, you name it. Wash the clothes will all basically come from the sun. We'll export what we don't use up the wires for other people. It will be redistributed. So I'll remain hooked to the grid here with this, but I'm having the system built with an electric car charger, because the next auto purchased here in this house will be an electric vehicle, and we will charge it off of the sun on the roof panels. And so here you got a situation where just by simply putting up some photovoltaics and using the sun that we have here, I can remove my entire energy bill from top to bottom. No more car gas, no more utility bill. That's pretty major. It's really one of the things that definitely chokes a lot of us. It's a handcuff, those utility bills. I wish I could figure out how to get around the insurance companies, and I'd love to be able to control the telecommunications on my own. I need a micro satellite. We can launch the Green Garden Guys satellite on one of Musk's rockets up there, and then we can bounce our phone signals off of it. If anybody wants to get on the Green Garden Guys communications satellite, we'll be launching that next year, so we can go around the telecommunications companies and take care of this stuff ourselves and not have to pay those extreme bills. The freedom and the personal independence that comes out of a garden, because I do believe for me it was in the garden and growing plants, and then seeing that I could sell the plants, I could sell the produce, I could sell the seeds. I realized that if I needed capital, the earth was going to provide that too, that I essentially did not need a job per se. I mean, I work all the time, constantly working here, but I'm working for myself, and it's between me and the planet and the people that absorb the goods that are being produced here. I do not need a boss or a middleman or a corporation in between to be able to support the economic needs even. Now, most all this all stems from the garden, because once I see I can feed myself, and once I see the quality of it is better than what I could actually purchase most of the time, then I begin to wonder, well, wow, if there's enough solar energy to grow all these plants, why am I paying somebody to hook a wire to my house? You know, or when I hear people, when I ran nursery a lot, I heard this so much about, gardening is so expensive. It's so expensive. Everything costs so much, you know. And, well, of course, I'm standing there with a cash register behind me, taking the money out of their hands because I'm selling plants and gardening things and so on. And I'm going, well, you know, I got a feeling it's just the way you're approaching this problem is that it seems like it's that expensive, because I don't know about you, but I'm making a fortune off of it. Thank you. You know, and so I attempted to prove that gardens were not a drain on an economy, that gardens were a positive. And I guess I proved it a little too well, because I don't do anything else anymore. You know, the only other place that income from me comes from is that I do have investments in the stock market, and I definitely believe in utilizing that aspect of our economy. So I have a few other sources of income. But by and large, most of them are directly related to growing. They're directly related to the planet itself. There are no middlemen providing these services for me in between. And so this is where I'm saying that we need to return to the garden. We need to go back, and when we look at the earth in such a way that we realize that the earth is fully capable of supporting each and every one of us, then we begin to take a different attitude towards, you know, what is society, what is the economy, what is all this that's going on, you know. It was because really we have been somewhat deluded for a long period of time by people that love to maintain control over resources, over products, because they know if they maintain that control, they can profit by it. Now, I'm an oddball here because I'm growing trees out here in the nursery to sell you, and I'm growing fruit on trees back here in the field to sell you, but at the same time, I'm giving away the information that I use to be able to accomplish that task. No reason to keep it to myself. I won't be here for long, and I certainly hope that other people might look at it and go, you know, he's got an idea there. You know, why am I slaving away at this job that I hate? You know, living in a place that I really don't care for. You know, this is not a lifestyle. Why am I chained, basically? Well, you don't have to be. You're only chained because you believe you have to be. That's all. It's all in the belief. Belief is one of the most powerful things in the entire universe. What you believe is your reality. And that ain't a bunch of metaphysics either, and I don't want to hear about it. That's just the way it is. You know, you take an idea, you bring it to your heart, you live the idea becomes your reality. It's really simple. People are really good at that, and so many of us don't really use it. I mean, look at guys, say, like Elon Musk is a great example of a dude that says, hey, I'm going to build a boring machine that makes underground trains. Let's do this. Hey, I want to go to the stars. I'm going to make a rocket ship, you know. I want to get everybody off of the gas pump. I'm going to build electric cars, you know. The guy up and does it. There was nothing stopping him. There was nothing stopping anybody else. You know, it's the only thing was stopping any of us was the way we think. You know, liberate yourself. Return to the garden. The garden teaches great lessons to people of understanding how you don't need all that BS. The planet takes care. This universe has more energy in it. It has lots of space. It's got plenty of water. There's good soil out there. There's delicious crops. There's fibers. There's medicines. There's almost everything a person actually ever needed. Unfortunately, to reach that point, you do have to be a little bit strange, because most of us don't believe that. You know, it's not believed. I recall even myself challenging these ideas when I was younger, even though I thought I could see them and I thought it was possible. But then I'd ask somebody else about it. Whoa, was that a mistake? You know, because immediately I'd get negativity on it usually. But year after year after year, I kept trying things and observing. And I finally drew the conclusion that there ain't no reason we got to put up with all that BS. And the more independent each and every one of us becomes, the stronger our entire nation and society becomes. This is not a retreat. This is not going off to try to hide in the woods. And it's not going backwards, which is what people told me when I was a young man and said, hey, I think I'm going to go into organic farming. They go, oh, man, we did that for centuries. You know, oh, you're going to handle horse shit. You know, nah. It's not. It's waking up to the reality of what the planet can provide. We've basically just been duped. There's a lot of Madison Avenue that's gone into this. I don't know, who was it? P.T. Barnum once said that a sucker's born every minute. Well, I'll tell you, most of us have been suckered by the system to believe that we actually need it. That's the point. It's not to say we shouldn't use it or can't use it. You know, it's there. When we put the panels on the roof here, I'm not going to pull the wire off the grid. Couple of reasons there. You know, one is that, well, extra juice will go back up the grid and make the energy situation here in Hawaii stronger than ever, because there will be more kilowatts that weren't there previously for somebody else to use. But it makes me stronger because I'm not creating a carbon footprint in my life, so I'm keeping the planet in better condition. When there's a power failure, I don't experience it, and so it strengthens my own individual position in that regard. But at least here in Hawaii, both gas and electricity are the most expensive bills that we have. They're more expensive than my insurance. And so, you know, by moving away from them makes me more free, creates a situation where I realize how free we actually are. And feeling trapped is one of the worst feelings on earth. I've been there. I know what it feels like. That's the reason that I'm in the situation I am today, because I worked quite hard to try to remove myself from the reliance on the system. So by making yourself more self-reliant, you actually strengthen the entire system for everybody else. The extra cabbages feed somebody, you know. The money made from the extra cabbages strengthens the local economy. The homegrown food tastes better than most of the crud you're going to get from the store. You know, I can go on and on and on and on and on, making up reasons why this is a better world if we live this way. But I think you get the idea by now. So I do believe I'll sign off for another day. I just want to say thanks for listening. Aloha. Y'all hang loose and plant a bigger garden this spring.